Welcome to part 5 of this series of tutorials on using AI tools. And in this tutorial, what we'll do is look at the outputs you can get out from your favorite AI assistant. Here's what you'll learn during this tutorial then. We'll start by looking at the different forms of text output you can get. So that's things like tables and numbered lists and bulleted lists. We'll then go to look at how you can create images. And I'll cover that in much more detail in a later dedicated tutorial. Then we'll look at how you can create code. Again, this will just be an overview. Again, I'll cover it in more detail in later tutorials. We'll look at how you can create Office 365 documents like Excel spreadsheets and PowerPoint presentations. And then we'll look at creating JSON and HTML files. And without wishing to repeat myself, again, there'll be a separate later tutorial on HTML and websites. I'll then look at creating audio files, so speech files. And finally, for a bit of fun, we'll look at creating poetry. There's various ways in which you can do this with AI tools. And we'll look at creating fancy things like organograms and word clouds. But I'm going to vanish now, as is my wont. And let's get started. Asking for text output with an AI prompt is simple enough. But what I want to do is show you just how demanding you can be. I'm going to do 3 examples, all to do with roller coasters. So for the first one, I'm going to say, please show me a numbered list of the 5 longest roller coasters in the world, showing the name of the coaster only. So that will give me a numbered list. But then underneath that, I'm going to say, underneath this, show me the number, that's using the numbered list above, and the name of each coaster as a bold underlined heading, followed by a description with not more than 20 words of the coaster. And then that should be a bulleted list showing the city, country, opening date and length in separate bulleted points. I must admit I tend to usually do this because I don't want to have to try to interpret the data. And then I've said don't include any text apart from what I've asked for, please. So let's see what this gives us. So it's searching the web, which is a good sign because it's getting up-to-date information. And then what it should do is come up with exactly what I've asked for. My numbered list of the 5 longest roller coasters, and then the details for each, exactly in the format I asked it. You can see it's even made this name of the roller coaster a heading. And it hasn't resisted the temptation to add another bit of detail at the bottom. I did ask for no other text, ChatGPT, but never mind, I'll forgive you for that. That's a common way to request exactly the output you want. There is another way, which is doing it by example. So in this example, I'm asking for pretty much the same information. I'm saying, please create a list of the 5 longest roller coasters in the world with the longest one first in this format. So then I said I want the name of the roller coaster first as a heading with the length in meters in brackets. And then I'm going to get the amusement park, city and country, and length in meters. Now, it may seem surprising if you're not used to using AI tools, just how much you can get away with here. It's intelligence, artificial intelligence, so it will infer that it should substitute in for each of these XXX's the bit of details you want without you having to spell this out. So let's see if I'm right. If I run that again, and after a while, it should come up with a short list. So I made the mistake of not saying, don't show me any other text. So I've got quite a bit of other information, but it's all quite interesting. I particularly like this little map. And then I've got the list. So you can see what it's done is respected the format I asked for. I've got the heading exactly as I asked for it. And then it's substituted in for my 3 XXX placeholders, the amusement park name, the city and the county, and the length. And we'll do much more on placeholders actually in a later tutorial in this series. I keep promising that. I would say though that about 80% of all the queries I ever run in AI tools ask for a table of data, and in this case it would be much more useful to have this information as a table. What I'd be more inclined to do is to say this: please show me a table of the 5 longest roller coasters in the world with the longest one first. And then what I tend to do is say what the columns of the table should be. So the roller coaster name, the amusement park, if any, the location, city and country, the opening date, and the length of the coaster in meters. And then I put don't include any text apart from what I've asked for, please. I might be tempted actually to say the website from which you got the information, because it's been adding that in anyway. So I might as well have it as a separate column so it doesn't clutter up the rest of the table. So let's see how successful this is. Again, there'll be a short pause. What it shows is exactly the information I asked for. And you can see putting the website source in a separate column is much nicer. And what I could then do, if I wanted to, is to export this to another format or copy it. Irritatingly, it's added in some extra text at the bottom, even though I asked it not to, but I think I'll forgive it that. I want to talk in much more detail in a separate tutorial on creating images, but for the moment, let's just show the basics. So what I'm doing here is saying create a picture of a post-apocalyptic scene where squirrels have become the dominant life form, and a family of them are sat at a table watching television, eating their evening meal. This is probably not enough detail to get really good results. Having said this, when I ran it, I was quite pleased with the results. There they are. It does look a bit of a depressing scene. What's interesting about this is that the prompt was provided by Andy Derbyshire, thank you Andy, who won our competition back in December of last year. That was what the prompt produced then. What you'll find is when you run the same prompt repeatedly, you get different images each time because of the probabilistic nature of artificial intelligence generation. You can go to this URL, which is included in the video notes, and see some of the other images which were created from our competition. You can see some of them have very, very long descriptions and some have particularly small ones. One of my favourite images was just had the prompt pig wearing Christmas jumper. So that's a very quick guide to creating images. As I say, more on that in a separate tutorial later in this series. Out of all the things that I personally use AI tools for, probably the biggest time saver is coding. And I reckon I'm a reasonably good programmer, but it still saves me vast amounts of time, particularly with C# and Python for some reason. What we're going to do is write a program in VBA which will take this list of 5 people and their hobbies and highlight the ones where the ability is 7 or more. So I could do this easily manually, but if I have 50,000 or 500,000 rows, it might take me a long time and I'll make mistakes. Far better to create a program to do the same thing. The program we're going to create is going to be in VBA, but it could just as easily be in any other language. The principles are the same for each. So what I'll do is go into my favourite AI tool, whatever that may be, and paste in this prompt. I also need to attach the Excel workbook I'm using in this case, so I'll do that. So the attached Excel workbook contains 3 columns giving the name of each person, the hobby they're into, and a rating from 0 to 10 of how good they are. Please write a VBA macro to colour the people whose rating is, I think it says 7 or higher, a light pastel pink. And then it says the macro should colour the cells containing data in the row, not the entire row, and it should work however many names there are in the table of data. So let's see what we get out of this. Thinking longer for a better answer. I don't know if that's a good or a bad sign. So you can see there, thought for 36 seconds. I could have clicked on the link saying get a quick answer, but I wanted an accurate one and a good one. So there's my answer, and it looks superficially pretty good. So what I'll do is see if it works. Now I'm not going to explain everything I'm going to do now, I just want to prove how good this is. I haven't tried this in advance, so I don't know how well it's going to work. Taking a bit of a risk. So the first thing to do is to go into the Visual Basic Code Editor, as it's called. I wouldn't bother trying to follow along if this is your first time with VBA. It's really just to show the principle. And what I'm going to do is right click and choose to insert something called a module. I'll paste in the code which I've copied from the ChatGPT window, and I'm going to try running it. Now I must admit I've already tested this, and to my great surprise it failed, which is unusual. And it fails on this line, and this really highlights the problem with coding in an AI tool, because if you don't know what you're doing, it's going to be very hard to solve this problem, and if you do know what you're doing, maybe you don't need the AI tool at all. The problem in this case, after a bit of investigation I found, is it's trying to refer to the value of a block of cells. If I have the the experience to remove that bit of code, and then I try running it again, you should see that this next time it works perfectly. Well, nearly perfectly. I don't know if you remember, I said just highlight these cells, but it's done the entire row. But it's not a bad attempt. The time I find coding most useful is when I want to do a short, finite task and I just can't remember the command, particularly in C# and Python, as I say. So my belief is that writing code in AI tools will massively increase your productivity, but only if you're already a programmer. For this section, what we're going to do is create a PowerPoint presentation. And here's the prompt I'll run. Please create a PowerPoint presentation using a theme based on the logo and colours taken from the WiseOwl training website at wiseowl.co.uk. The presentation should contain, it's going to be basically our cats better than dogs, an introduction cover sheet saying cats or dogs, and then a bulleted list saying why cats are better, another one saying why dogs are better, and then your conclusions. And to avoid its usual fence sitting, I've said please make sure you give a firm vote one way or another, no shilly-shallying. It'd be interesting to see what it votes for. So let's try running this. And what it's doing firstly is searching the web. Presumably it's going to the WiseOwl website to get the logo. So what it does is goes to the website, gets our logo, which looks good, and creates a suggested colour and design theme, creates a breakdown of the slides, and there it is, and then says, please let me know if you'd like help with the formatting. Well, I do, because I want a PowerPoint presentation. So please create the presentation file. Now, I'm not optimistic about this. You get an instinct after a while with what's going to work well and what won't. It's not going to be very good at creating a design in PowerPoint because underneath it all is having to write reams and reams of Python script to create the presentation. And I just don't think it's going to be very good at making it look visually appealing, but maybe I'm being too pessimistic. So at the end of the process, my presentation is ready. I can now click on it. Would you like me to also add some small owl or paw print icons in mustard yellow? We'll talk about that mustard yellow colour, which matches the WiseOwl branding in a second. If I click on that presentation to download it, you'll see it comes up the file. I've cheated. There was a previous version, which we'll see if it looks the same or not. And what it will do is come up with a presentation, which I'll just drag into the screen. So if I now try running that, let's see how it looks. I just need to enable my editing. And let's run it as as a presentation. Cats or dogs? Why cats are better? Yep, agree with all of those. Why dogs are better? Complete rubbish. And then it comes to the wrong conclusion that dogs are better, although I accept viewers of this presentation may disagree. That's not bad, actually. The first time I ran it, it produced a presentation using the colours from our old website, which was changed about 2 or 3 years ago, but it seems to have brought itself up to date with this one. So that's not too bad, but it's not exactly aesthetically pleasing, is it? So I've got a fair amount of work to do to add a design and make it look good. So for JSON and HTML, all I really want to show at this moment is that both are possible. So let's run a prompt saying, create a JSON file listing out all of the current staff in WiseOwl training. I think it'll be able to get those from a page on our website listing us all. Let's find out. The data should include each person's name and hobbies. Please don't include any extra words or introduction. JSON stands for JavaScript Object Notation, but you knew that, didn't you? It's basically like the old XML. It's a text way of displaying information. So you can see it's come up with me. I'm into crosswords, cycling, playing football and squash. It hasn't been able to fill any hobbies in for Andrew, despite them being listed on exactly the same page on our website. But it's not a bad attempt. And what I could do then, if I wanted to, is copy and use that by clicking on this button. So what I could do now is say, well, I want exactly the same thing, but this time in HTML format. So what you'll see is this is a unordered list containing each person's name and hobbies. Again, it doesn't seem to have found Andrew's hobbies. Sorry, Andrew. And what I could do again is copy this. Later on in this tutorial series, I'll do a separate tutorial on working with websites and HTML. But for now, that will be a proof of principle. So in the last few parts of this tutorial, what I'm going to do is just show you some fun things, really, to give you an idea of what's possible. Let's imagine you're John McClane in Die Hard and you want to describe what happened on your day. What you can do is go into something called voice mode in ChatGPT, and I'm going to see if I can generate a sound file for this. It may not work. Let's give it a go. Imagine that you're John McClane in the first Die Hard movie. You're asked to summarise your experiences of the events described in the film in no more than 50 to 100 words in your authentic voice, which must be male. Please create a sound file for this.
Absolutely. I'll step into the shoes of John McClane for a moment.
Nothing's happening?
Looks like that audio didn't quite roll out as planned. Let me try that again and I'll channel my inner McClane for you.
Nope, still nothing. Okay, let's just have it in a New York accent, please.
Absolutely. Let's do that. So, in a nice New York accent, here's John McClane's summary. Yeah, I just showed up to a Christmas party. Things went a little sideways with some bad guys, and I had to crawl through some vents. Yippee-ki-yay and all that.
So when you finish, you can see a transcript as I've got here. I think in all fairness, that feature is more so you can have a conversation with a ChatGPT AI assistant rather than for generating sound files. If you do want to generate songs, you won't be able to do it in any of the standard AI tools. I know because I've just tried 3 or 4 of them. So instead I'm using a product called Suno. And what we'll do in this is to create a new song. So you can see up here I said create a short song extolling how important it is to make tea putting the milk into the cup first in the style of Nashville Country and with a female singer. So let's see how it does with this. So you can see here's a song, and if we try playing it, there's the lyrics, and here's the song. A little Juliet, soft daylight. The kettle hums, the steam does rise. A quiet prayer beneath the Tennessee skies. And what goes first? That's the rule. Grandma taught me it's the golden tool. Okay, and I think that's enough of that. But if you ever wonder why creative types are getting worried about AI, now you know. So we're delving further into ChatGPT's or AI assistants creativity now, really just for fun actually, just to finish off the tutorial. Let's say you want to create TripAdvisor style reviews from a group of 4 over-enthusiastic, gushy tourists about their visit to see the Little Mermaid in Copenhagen, which I would say was one of the most disappointing things I've ever seen, but anyway. For each review, please give the type of review and the review itself. So we're going to have the following types: a sonnet in the style of William Shakespeare, a 4-line poem in iambic pentameter, a haiku, which is a Japanese 3-line poem, I think, and a limerick. So let's see what we get. If I run that, I predict the results will be better than you'll think they'll be, but let's find out. So I'm not going to read it all out. I'll just read the 2 or 3 lines. Upon the harbour's edge she takes her throne, a maiden cast in bronze, yet fair of face. Though Neptune calls, she lingers all alone, and grants to mortals wonders, sweet embrace. It's pretty good. The poem in iambic pentameter? Her bronze-lit form upon the rocks did gleam, a fairer sight than any travelled dream. The sea did whisper love around her face, and left our hearts enraptured in her grace. Again, pretty impressive. The haiku? Gleaming on the shore, mermaid whispers ocean songs, dreams dance in bronze waves. I must admit I've never liked haikus much anyway, so I don't know if that's a good or bad one. And finally, the limerick. A mermaid of bronze by the bay took all of our breath clean away. Though tiny she seems, she shines in our dreams. We'd worship her statue all day. Like the tourists, you can't stop squealing with excitement and tears at the sight. I think that's certainly over the top gushy. So finally, I just want to show some of the other things you can do. Really, the main limit is going to be your imagination. So create a word cloud of the words on the homepage of the WiseR training website. I haven't actually tried any of these before, so it's going to be interesting to see how many of them work. I know it used to work in the past. It says I can't directly create word clouds. That's a shame because it used to be able to. Okay, try something else. We've just played a few games of Pooh Sticks, and here are the result games won by person. And what I want to do is show this as a chart. Don't disappoint me. And you can see it says interactive, so this is a new feature. You can be absolutely certain underneath that there's some Python script running. Let's try an organogram of the 10 most important people in the UK cabinet. I'm pessimistic about this. Let's give it a go and see. I think what it will do is struggle to get the organizational chart in the first place. That is pretty impressive. Wow. And finally, let's look at a mind map. Now, mind maps are slightly disappointing because they sound like they're going to be really impressive. Actually, they're just a bulleted text diagram normally. So I'm saying, I'm thinking of going on a cycling holiday in the deep south of the United States. Please create a mind map of the main things I should consider when deciding whether to go. And there it is. Not so much of a mind map as just a bulleted list with sub-bullets. So my advice when using ChatGPT is, if ever you want to get something out of it, just ask. What's the worst which can happen? There's so much more on our website at wiseowl.co.uk, including blogs, shorter tips, tutorials on SQL and VBA, hundreds of exercises in all sorts of different software applications, and a chance to test your skills in a few selected software applications. In addition to all of that, you can watch our video tutorials like this one in all these different subjects. Or you could consider booking one of our training courses, whether it be classroom, on-site, or online, or even as one-to-one consultancy. Thank you for watching.